I hope everybody's having a good day. I've received a few emails from other professors regarding how do I allow students to access our textbook website while within Lockdown Browser. So on the screen you should see basically the landing page of my B Core 360 Supply Chain Management course. So from here, as the professor, you can scroll down. So after you make your exam, and it's in there, you can scroll down to Course Tools, and then scroll down to Respondus Lockdown Browser. Now from here, I'm just going to pick Exam 4. If you go to Settings, so as you can see here, Lockdown Browser is required, but the monitor is not required. So I've got Lockdown Browser required for the exam and don't require monitor. I have several students who don't have webcams or don't have functional webcams, so I just found it easier just to do it for the 300 plus students I have, just not to require the monitor. So if you go down to Advanced Settings, you have Allow Access to Specific External Web Domains. So that word right there is important, domains. So my provider is myeducator.com. So it's not www.myeducator.com because that's a URL. Use myeducator.com because this is the domain. Because sometimes when you go to these websites, they may have what's called a subdomain, which might be like, so they might have a subdomain. So this right here would be the subdomain. So you have subdomain like ITS or coronavirus or, business.wvu.edu. So business would be a subdomain or coronavirus in this case. So if you put it like this, it will only let you go to websites that have this entire thing as their part of their URL, which is what's actually typed up in here in where you type to go to eCampus and such like that. So if you only put in the domain, for my case, myeducator.com, the students will be allowed to go to that, but they don't have the ability yet. Now, if you have multiple resources, or for example, if you use McGraw-Hill, you might have McGraw-Hill and then comma, because down here, enter one or more web domains separated by commas. And here's an example. There's a comma with no space. So comma. So there you would have, you basically whitelisted or allowed access to MyEducator and example.com. So this is very important if you're going to allow them to access multiple resources. So when you go and check out how students get to the resource, take a look at the URL and see what's there. Now, if you want them specifically only to go to one, and for example, let's say it's eCampus, and you don't want them to go to its.wvu.edu, then you would have to put in eCampus, because anything that starts with eCampus.wvu.edu, they'll be allowed to go to. But if you just put wvu.edu, they can go to any, essentially, university website. So you can limit them down. Let's see, what else do I do? And once you do, submit that, make sure it's there. And then when you go to an exam, I just pick Module 3. So here, when you did that, it says requires Lockdown Browser. That will automatically be put in there in addition to whatever your title was. Now, this was before our current situation, so I required a webcam on this if they did it outside of class. So if you go to this and then do Edit Test Options. Now, what I chose to do is in the test instructions, I put to access MyEducator, click here. And when they click there, it comes up to the login page. But notice how the website is exactly what I allowed them to use. Now, ITS recommends that you make it the first question something similar to this. They have to be able to see the questions before they click on this, because the system might think they're cheating if they try to open it then go into go into the website. They'll think the website is a cheating website when you've explicitly allowed it. So this is what I do. Now, to kind of simulate what that would look for the students. Now, I forgot to show, in case you have some students that, let's say, have a Chromebook, there is no option for a Chromebook to use Lockdown Browser. So if you go down here, this password right here will allow you to bypass Lockdown Browser. I know it's a alphanumeric, it looks like hexadecimal number, but this is the number that will allow you to get past, or anybody who has this password right here, to get past Lockdown Browser. So because Lockdown Browser won't let me screen record while I'm doing this, I'm going to use that password to get past it. So here, it has your details. But when you hit begin, it says requires Lockdown Browser. Start the browser and navigate back. Well, this is the password you would put in to bypass Lockdown Browser. So here you see my instructions where they can click here to open My Educator, and then you have their question, the questions you've put in. ITS recommends having question number 1 be something similar to this. And then they can click on it, you make it 0 points, and therefore it doesn't have anything to do with your grading. But I put it in the instructions just to make it easier. And I make the instructions where the students can't see the instructions until they're in the test. So it's just as simple as clicking there, and they're brought to the website. So that's how I set it up so my students can access the textbook within Lockdown Browser.